Hi, and welcome. I'm really excited today because I have one of my favorite people. I got Julio Olalla. Hi.
Well, thank you very much, my dear. Thank you, thank you, thank
I'm thrilled to have you on. So let me tell our viewers a little bit about you. So
you.
you are a former Chilean lawyer and now the president of Newfield Network. You were my mentor and my coach, so I know a lot about you. Your passion is bringing new and powerful ways of learning and knowing to individuals and organizations to produce more creative, meaningful, and effective action.
Mm.
So I think you know the story already. I heard you at the ICF International Coaching Federation probably about 12 years ago, and I loved your beingness and your message that it stayed with me. It was back there in my unconscious or conscious until
Well,
I decided I needed to train with you, and I'm so glad I did it this year. So thank you.
it's a pleasure to have you there.
All right, so let's start with, as a human global family, we're really facing some collective
Mm.
challenges that leave many people feeling isolated, anxious, really concerned about the economy, their own future. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts about this?
You know that, well, you heard me in the program that I spoke a couple of times about what I believe is taking place is the collapse of a worldview, the modernity. And the the issue that we are having with the health issue, the pandemic, it's putting things, it's like putting some pressure on top of the ones we already have. But my interpretation of what happened today on a planetary level, and particularly in the Western world, is that the same way that happened when the Middle Ages collapsed, we are attending to a moment in which the world we are building cannot continue the same way. Our worldview in this moment is creating enormous breakdowns worldwide in any front you can think of, and I don't think I need to mention them. And there's a sentence that you heard me also that Einstein kept speaking. He said, the crisis that we have created with a level of thinking, this level of thinking, cannot be resolved with the same level of thinking. And for me, it's not that we don't care, but if we keep thinking, looking, having the same perspective of existence that we have today, we will continue doing more of the same in spite of the fact that we would like to see something different. You can see that in ecological realm. We keep doing the same damage in spite of the fact that most of us say we care. We see that in terms of human health. We see that in terms of the issues of distribution of wealth on the planetary level, etc., etc., etc. The crisis for me is at this moment reaching a point, and the pandemic is nothing but pushing it to an edge.
Wake up call.
It's a wake-up call in a very serious way.
So we have, I'm going to say the world, I'm going to put them all in one category over
Yeah.
here, who's had a view of the world, has done things the way that they've done it. We've
Mhm.
seen the damage. We've either turned a blind eye or decided that, I'm too small to make any difference. And
Yeah.
now we've hit this wall. So what's the availability going over here?
Mm.
What would you invite us to consider, think, open up
Mm.
a new mindset?
Yeah. Well, in first place, one of the most dramatic events that took place when modernity was born is that humanity, and for very good reasons, by the way, fell in love with matter, literally explaining everything in a very materialistic way. And it is, remember, Copernicus shifted our worldview, our world of the planets and the positions of the Earth, and etc., etc. But that was not just an astronomical shift, it was a spiritual shift. It shifted dramatically our standing in the planet and Copernicus said something very extraordinary that is important to recall. He said, the Earth is not the center of the universe. That was an astronomical stand, but it's always a very spiritual one. People said, church, the reform said to him, hey guy, wait a second. If we are the children of God, of course we are at the center of the universe. So that created a turmoil, but it created a turmoil fundamentally in that we couldn't stop the thinking that began to come to be present, that we end up calling science. Then we had first a period of time of struggling, right? But then suddenly, boom, this exploded as a new way of thinking. And one thing happened that is very important to realize. Our falling in love with the exterior aspect of existence deprive us in our learning and knowing of the inner aspect of existence. And that division is at the center of our epistemology, our way of understanding knowledge. Real things come from matter. Even consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the brain. The inner aspect of existence was left more and more abandoned. And we focus everything in the exterior aspect of existence to the degree that we develop a technology that is simply amazing, extraordinary, that produces enormous impact. But in the other side, today we are dealing with crisis, particularly in the Western world. Look at this, the huge growth of depression. I'm talking psychological depression. The huge growth of juvenile suicide. And I cannot continue because we are going to fall in depression, all of us right now.
I feel the tears coming up for me already.
Yeah, and you know what? That is happening, but we have so many resources and we have no idea what to do with it. The collapse of purpose and meaning in modernity in this moment is huge. And what this virus, COVID, is doing is putting those things in front in a way that we cannot not look at them.
Yes.
So this is a very serious moment.
It's a pivotal point. We're at this, yeah.
And humanity has lived moments like this, the collapse of the Roman Empire, the collapse of the Middle Ages. And so once in a while, we realize that a worldview, a particular understanding, that we don't call it understanding, we call it that's the way things are, by the way. But when we realize that view, that creation, that understanding of existence is producing breakdowns that we cannot resolve with that understanding, we have no way but to face it. And sometimes it's tough. It's tough. It's very hard. So I'm not saying this is going to happen in a few days, this is going to collapse, a new world. I don't think we are going to have what would always happen, the struggle between the new worldview and the one that is collapsing. But this one is going to resist until the end. We need to count on that.
Yeah. So it's quite clear everything that we've come from, and we're at this pivotal moment where we have an opportunity. What do you see that opportunity is? What are we pivoting towards?
I believe that we can live beautiful, simple lives when we comprehend that nature is not a natural resource, it's us. When we look at nature as natural resource, it's to be used. Well, we can keep using it until extinction, but then what? We extinguish because we are nature. So when we look for a simple way of living, and we have available technologies, we have resources, we have everything. We can have a very simple, loving approach to life. But we realize that the accumulation, the gathering, all that comes simply like an inertia. We don't need to go to that place for a good existence. What happens if we fall in love again with gratitude? What happens if we fall in love again with giving voice to existence instead of thinking that the only voice is ours? What will happen if we embrace our unity with everything instead of this idea that we are separated?
Yeah.
For me, those are the key elements.
Yeah, can we just tease out what is give voice to existence? Could you give some more concrete examples?
For instance, the basic assumption that we have is that in this, and I need to say it this way, please. We live in a cosmos, and our planetary system is one out of billions of planetary systems within the galaxy. And this galaxy is one of billions of galaxies. And we have the idea that consciousness, awareness, is only an issue of ours. It's a little pretentious. If we bring back some humbleness, I say it's fine. We have that. But isn't that also fed by voices that we have lost, that we stopped listening? I'm talking, I was just working with a sentence that I published. For instance, we know everything about trees, but we stop listening to that. Sounds strange when I say it, but the relationship with that is an it. It's not a part of who I am. Therefore, I can study it, but I stop listening to it. Not in the sense of words, obviously, or anything like that. But look, the disrespect with the ocean, the billions of tons of garbage thrown to it. That means we're not listening to millions of species that live there. Yeah. That's what I mean by listening, is embracing, respecting, holding them also as part of life and existence. But in our way of knowledge, that separation between us or living things and the rest, or the fact that there's a philosopher in the 1600s at the beginning of the Enlightenment who said, Francis Bacon, who said, knowledge finally is arriving to humankind. From now on, nature will be to our service. He said it literally, and we have lived that.
Yeah.
That is at this moment a reality that we have built that we cannot sustain. We can't.
You know, one of the things that you said in our program, our training program, was you asked how many of us have lived the distinction growing up, us versus them. Everyone in the program put their hand up.
Yeah.
And that's what you're asking us, is to really start to examine what's the impact of the us versus them.
Yeah. And by the way, the understanding that we have of us individually is we have two basic perspectives. All that happened to me is because me. I'm guilty of anything, or because of them out there. But we haven't been able to understand something that little by little is becoming more and more present. There's no I without you. That every word that I pronounce, I inherited. Every perspective I live, I inherited. And not only that, I develop it. in with others day after day, our conception of being as an island, that ontology in which we live, is also collapsing. There's a profound solitude in our souls.
Yeah, and I really want to address that. I think we're just starting to touch on it, and I want to expand this conversation for people who are feeling that loneliness, the boredom, the the limitations that have been imposed if you're in lockdown, the restaurants, the group get-together, family get-togethers, all of those missings are really bringing up these emotions, which most people consider negative emotions.
Yeah.
Like, can we talk about that? What's that about? How do you overcome that? What's the future possibility in that?
Yeah. For me, there are two things that many people have been asking me or having conversations. One is that the office and the home are together today in ways that we never imagined. That is creating a whole new territory to explore. But also,
Julio, can I just stop you a moment? Are you wearing a microphone? Because there's a lot of clicking, cracking.
Hold on a second. It may be this thing here next to me.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm saying is that that is one reality that we are facing. The office, home is like one thing. The other one is that I have to deal now on regular basis, entering conversations on regular basis that before I was not in need to have them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is challenging us in so many ways. Do you realize that solitude, when it's there, it's not just solitude in a sense of physical solitude. We can be very alone in the middle of a crowd.
Yeah.
And some of us are experiencing that. I can be with you in profound loneliness, or we can be together in ways that would be simply awesome, magnificent, beautiful. There's so many challenges, my dear, these days, so many. For instance, the appreciation of simple things, having a coffee with a friend, going to the cafe, and then there's so many simple things that in daily life, because they have it, simply we lost appreciation. That points to an emotional phenomenon that is important. I don't know if that's something that is relevant to talk here, but it has to do with gratitude. Mm-hmm. The word gratitude, we talk about this, but let me repeat this. Comes from Latin that means without price. It's for free. Gratitude means what is free. Mm-hmm. There are so many things in life that because we have it next to us, we lost the capacity to be grateful for them. Yeah. Mm. This is another aspect that we are facing these days. Simple things that we are now longing for, and when we have them, we never stop to say thank you, to be grateful for. In other words, it's one after another revelation these days. But I don't think I insist that is this crisis only a health crisis. Mm. It's a lot larger, a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier about all the external has kind of been pulled away from us.
Yeah.
And we're faced with that internal world that we could have avoided with TV, with cleaning, with shopping, with all the different addictions, capital A and small A.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so simple too. But There's a dimension of being that in modernity we are losing or we have lost. Is this extraordinary capacity to be with the simple things that life offers. So simple things. And that, that I recall, just came to me right now. When I was in Peru, in the Cusco, I talked with an ancient man, a very old man, a native man. He told me, we had a short conversation, and he said to me, guy, you guys, he referred to the non-natives, you are always running and running and running and running all day long. The only thing is you have no idea where you're heading. And that sentence has remained with me.
Yeah.
What are we running so much? To get where? To go where?
It's that treadmill. And even when you get there, there's somewhere else to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. And the act of reflecting, I think that is just an issue for philosophers. We are busy in something else. I said, life is saying, guys, take a look. Take a look. There are so brutal things taking place. You know that when the fire happened in Australia, billions of animals passed away. Billions. What needs to happen for us to realize that this happened to us? It's not something that happened out there. And look at what happened, for instance, with the forest in Brazil. What needs to happen for us to wake up? And what world are we going to create when the modernity thinking collapses completely?
Yeah, it would be so easy to just go back to what we know, what we've been talking about, our normal. We've lost our normal, our new normal, but it's so easy to slide back to old habits.
Yeah, it is. It always happens in moments of great changes. Let's go back to what we know. As I said, we are waiting for some earthquakes, some sort in the human soul. But you know that I travel a lot and I am with people in different countries and culture. I think there's more and more and more wondering about what is what we have done with life. What is the meaning or the purpose of this? And I think it's a wonderful question to ask if we dare to sustain it instead of trying to resolve it in 2 minutes. Where is it? That meaning, that purpose. And I think I see faces of. I was just had a conversation with. There was a. I don't know how to call it, but let's say webinar. I don't know. Today with this, I lost track of the names of different events. But I had a conversation. There were 650 people yesterday. And the conversation was around this topic. One after another, because I had the opportunity to interact with different ones. But they kept saying to me that they are asking questions about existence, about themselves, about relationship that they hadn't asked ever before.
I can even say that for me on a much smaller scale, what's opened up for me is Everything's slowing down so much. My son
Mm,
can't go to hockey. My partner can't go teach running. I can't go to dances, having the time together. I've
mm,
lived here for 3 years and we have a forest nearby. I have
yeah.
never explored that forest until about 4 weeks ago. And even at lunch today, my son invited me. He's like, Mom, come sit outside just for lunch hour. And I thought, 10, 15 minutes, I should go back in the office. I've got so much work to do. And it's like, well, but on my deathbed, am I going to regret that I didn't do more work or sat and enjoyed nature and be with my family? So even that's opening up for me on a much smaller scale.
But look at what you just said as an image. I have a forest nearby that I had never visited. How many things, let's put it that, we have not visited?
Mm.
Not you, we as humanity, we as, what is that we haven't seen or we've stopped seeing or appreciating? And it's impossible for me not to think when I having a conversation like this of faces and faces of people that I met. It's about time, my dear, to ask new questions and to learn to hold them instead of trying to be crazy to respond them in 2 seconds.
Mm. Because when we respond quickly, we go back to the old. It's the only thing we know.
2 seconds and go back there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you were going to put out an invitation to our viewers,
Yeah.
what would you invite them to consider?
There's one thing that we talked at the beginning. We have an understanding of what is to know. It's not what we know, it's our comprehension, the understanding. It's the answer that we live with to the question, what is knowing,
Mm.
that needs to be revised. Knowing, for instance, if you ask what is knowing to a person in the Middle Ages in Europe, the response will be completely different than if you ask the question to anyone in the street today and said, what is knowing? It's obvious that I know what knowing is. No, we live with a response to what is to know that has to do fundamentally with this idea that knowing is having answers that we learn at school.
Mm.
Answers equal. We live with the idea that knowing is to having skills and abilities for something, which is fine, could be. But when it comes to the inner aspect of existence, knowledge begins to be like weird because we talk about that is subjective. That is like we enter in a kind of airy fairy territory. We need to make that disappear. What is the most beautiful thing of existence? I'm not denying that we can know about what constitutes this materially or biologically. I'm not denying that. But if we say that that is all what knowing is, we're that is what is asphyxiating us today.
Mm.
What is the mystery of this existence? What is love? Why we care? What is beauty? And instead of running with answers, let's stay with them as is for the first time.
Mm.
Remember that in England, Newton asked a very simple question that changed humankind thinking when he saw an apple falling from the tree. Look at the question he asked, why the apple fell.
Mm.
And not only that, he said it fell in direct, straight line toward it. What would be if I ask a question like that today? Stop it, everything falls, and that's it. It would be so easy, right?
Mm.
That simple question shifted the humankind thinking of planetary life, forces, and etc., etc., etc. To ask those questions, you need to be like he was, sitting and looking at what usually we don't look,
Mm.
we take for granted. I think this is the moment, is to look as if for the first time. As if for the first time. Yeah.
Mm. And with that, Julio, I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for the opening that you've created for our viewers or listeners. Thank you for the difference you've made for me in my world and the difference you make in the world.
Thank you, Maria, for inviting me. I truly appreciate it. Thanks to everybody that was listening. And truly enjoyed to see you again.
Me too.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.